All right, gang, if you are watching or listening, I had the privilege of watching a new thriller that is on the scene right now, starring an actress that I like very much, Sophia Bush, Chris Carmack, Amaya Miller, and amongst others. The film is The Stranger in My Home. This thing is packed with just twists and it keeps you on your toes throughout the entire viewing experience. And here to talk about it with me is the director of that movie, Jeff Fisher. Jeff, how you doing?
Hey, Jimmy, great to be here. I'm doing well. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Uh, you know, Coming out of film school, man, and learning the craft of directing and camera work and everything, watching this movie, I was like, dang, like this packs so much into 90 minutes. The first thing I had to ask you was how was it directing this thing? Because you guys, I mean, it is moving from start to finish. Like you guys, your cast and your crew, like the editing, all of it, like you pack in like this twisted tale and it never slows down.
Well, thanks, man. I'm trying. Yeah, I try to keep, I try to keep my movies at 90 minutes, honestly, because I feel like, that's the sweet spot for kind of just keeping everything paced and engaged.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was great. Like you said such nice things about the actors, and I'm right there with you. They were terrific, and we actually had our I don't even know if I should talk about this, but we had our schedule and our budget cut like by a third, like a few weeks
Oh
before
wow.
shooting. So it was it was a fast shoot. And I so benefited from like Sophia and Chris and all of the actors really just like showing up like super prepped and in it to win it and just being such pros all the way through. So I wish I could take more credit, but I was super lucky and the crew really rose to our new truncated schedule and gave it their all. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I mean, the thing too about this, I'm curious, like, kind of, were you approached to direct, or how was it that you came aboard this project? Because this story seems very real, like it could happen. This is a situation that I feel there was a show my wife was super into probably 10 years ago called Switched at Birth. And
Sure.
it
Yeah.
and it was kind of like the same without the horror thriller aspect of it, but it was like the two families dealing with their kids being switched at birth. So this is not like one of those, horror thrillers that it's like a Freddy or a Jason or anything. Very rooted in reality. This movie, as far as a situation that colossal mess up by the hospital without giving spoilers away,
Right.
but it's something that could happen. So what was it that kind of drew you in to want to direct this?
Yeah, all great observations and great questions. So this is based on a book by a British author named Adele Parks, and I had just the previous year for the same production company, kind of brought her the first of her books that were made into a movie. It was called The Image of You. So I had just done that, and the same screenwriter, this great screenwriter Chris Syvertson, had adapted, that screenplay. So that was kind of how I had my in. I think I was grateful that they liked The Image of You well enough to ask me to come back and do this next this next adaptation. But to your point, yeah, when it kind of came on the radar, I like your wife when she watched Switched at Birth, but I kind of did a deep dive into kind of like real life events where this had happened, and there were a couple of stories just where kind of the parents had really sought out their biological children and kind of like the heartache, stuff that things that didn't kind of this unexpected turn of events that didn't go that smoothly, right? And was just so jarring for everybody involved. So yeah, there's just a lot of organic um drama in it, and then like how do you react to these, like, ding dong, your life's about to change in a significant way. So it was it was an interesting world to kind of educate myself on.
The thing too that my co-host and I, when we were watching it, I was like, this is the nicest looking horror movie I have ever seen. And the plates on the cars did you guys film in Utah? Is that where you were?
We did. We
Yeah.
did. Yeah, thanks. And I'll pass on your nice thing to our DP, Nathan. But yeah, so the previous one on the image of you, we kind of played Salt Lake and Park City for like Denver and
Oh yeah.
Colorado. But this
Yeah.
was my third movie I shot in Utah, and it's so beautiful there. And so I asked if we could just make it make it Utah. Just kind of like, live in that idea that they live in Park City and they live around Salt Lake, which just felt organic and also like allowed me to use more of the natural beauty. Like I remember
Hmm.
I shot a Hallmark movie there, and it's like, and I remember the producer saying, "You can't show us any mountains, right? It's supposed to be the East Coast, Vermont." So I had to like kind of like hide some of Utah's beauty. So it was great to just kind of lean into it. Yes, and yes, our prop department did a good job with the license plates and everything. They knew what a Utah plate looked like, so they
Yeah, the challenge of making Utah look like Vermont. I have family on the East Coast. I don't envy that, man, because Utah and Vermont are very different.
I know. I think the producer, like, I was stressed. That was like all those are really fast shoes. I remember the producer said, if you show us a mountain, you're not going to be asked back. I was like, oh, well, okay, I'm not going to show. Won't I won't tell you about my bigger problem on that show was like it was like blazing hot July, and I had to make it look like Christmas. So I had to make sure none of the reflections in any of like the storefronts showed that it was super sunny. Anyway.
it, Working with Sophia Bush, like she takes, her character goes on, a hell of an arc, almost multiple arcs
Yeah.
in this 90 minutes, and her husband Jeff, kind of has his own lane that he is in. But man, the character of Tom
Yeah.
he is so creepy. We do a thing on our channel where we watch movies on a separate show. We watch horror films and we discuss whether or not they would be like good haunted houses at a Halloween event. And we were all like, you know, Tom is a character that could almost be welcoming you to a Halloween event. Even the subject matter and the way that this is a horror film doesn't lean itself necessarily into a haunted house, but that Tom character is definitely a character that if you interacted with, uh, he would give you the heebie-jeebies. What was it like drawing that performance, out on set?
Well, Chris Carmack is such a nice human being, and he plays these very, likable characters, certainly of late. So, yeah, it was fun. Chris brought all kinds of like great ideas on like ways to layer up to layer up Tom. And again, he was so prepped, and like, yeah, and like I know you mentioned them, but Sophia, like, I think delivers just a hell of a performance. And Chris Johnson, who plays Jeff, like really grounded that guy. And like Amaya, I'm just crazy about. She's such a, like, I think she's such a little movie star. But anyway, I could go on and on about how much I adore this cast. But um, yeah, I mean, listen, Chris found that line. There were a lot of people, I hope that you're at the beginning at least you're playing along at home and saying, okay, well, who's behind some of these shenanigans? But
Right. No.
yeah, but everybody had their own little
Sub
secrets to reveal.
yeah. No, for sure. And that was one of those things where we my co-host Andrew and I, we were like, this is like playing Clue, like trying to figure out all the moving pieces and everything. And it goes just down. It is a trickle down effect where you think, okay, the main conflict is here, and then you guys introduce us to a new character like Jordan.
Mm.
um and it was like, okay, well, let's figure this out. And the writing and the way that you directed and your cast, like, it really does, this film, keep you on your toes. And to quote Roddy Piper from the 80s, just when you think you have all the answers, I change the questions. And that is what this movie did, man. And I got to ask you as the director, was there a particular time? So you did, mention, budgetary constraints and stuff, and that is what, indie film, indie horror especially is all about, is making it work within the confines. Was there a particular like day on set or a sequence scene, anything in the final cut that when you watch this back, you're like, man, this is exactly like this is stellar. I'm really proud of this.
Yeah, well, thanks. I wish all my Mondays started out with these compliments. Thank you very much. Um, you know, so yeah, and I feel badly even, it was what it was. Like we were just in it to win it with whatever the new parameters were. I was really worried about the cabin sequence at the end because it's such a big thing. And we did have a truncated amount of time to shoot that. And I was worried because they have, there's a lot of heavy lifting in the acting department that has to go on there. And we had a little bit of time, but I really do like the way everybody like came together, that all of the characters in that sequence kind of have their moments. So like that was one that I was I was very focused on making sure that we had everything that we needed to tie that up. Um at the end. And obviously it was hoping that it came, and I do. And thanks to my friend Marissa Mueller edited this. This is our fourth movie that we did together, and she really helped make sure that we were that we were lined up. I used to call her a couple of times because she'd be cutting a few days behind us and be like, we're wrapping this location, I'm a little worried about this, can you just check out to make sure this cuts? But on the cabin, that was like that was the very end of our schedule, and there's no way we were like loading back into that. So I had my fingers and toes crossed, and hopefully it did sell through.
One of the things that comes across really well too is, another compliment to your casting director, because uh Grace, who plays Liv, and then Amaya, who plays, the main, or
Katie.
one of the main focal, yeah, Katie, Sophia Bush's, Allie's uh, daughter. Um, they look when, and it's not really a spoiler, because when you do your research and you look up this movie, the tagline, does mention the switched at birth angle. But man, those two girls look just like Liv looked just like Sophia Bush, and Katie looks really close to Chris. Like, they look like they could have been related.
Well, thanks. And I will call our casting directors who are great, like right after, because like they were, we were that we talked about that a lot, and they did deliver, and they'll be really grateful to hear that. We got like a compliment in a print article about that, and I sent it to them right away, and they were like, "Oh, that's awesome, thanks." Yeah, because if they do, it was very intentional, and they were awesome. Yeah, it was Barb Stordahl and Angela Terry and Lisa Bourne were the casting, and they were. I loved working with them.
My day job is a high school teacher. And so seeing the dynamic you guys play out um was pretty entertaining because you definitely like hit this like this is and actually I do resource, so I keep the kids from freshman year through graduation unless they test out of the program. And you know Katie is a sophomore, 15 years old, like ballpark and sophomore age. And I'm like, dang, like the tropes that are in there with like the mean girl and everything
Yeah.
um are pretty spot on. The thing with the cell phones,
Oh,
I got asked like kids do that. We graduated high school 20 years ago now. I feel old. And we were talking about like, man, like we barely had flip phones. This was not a thing when we were in high school, and they were like, Jimmy, did they do this? And I was like, no, yeah, they definitely, this is how it would react. So how was that for you guys to go back to kind of that world and try to belay how kids would interact in this situation?
um, yeah, my God, those mean cheerleaders are oh, right from the start. Um, yeah, so I over COVID I was teaching down at SCAD at Savannah College of Art and Design. So I had a little, of those incoming freshmen like on their phone, and then just I think like Jimmy, like you're mentioning, like we live in this world where like I'm really glad that my like boozy mistakes weren't like blasted across
Dude,
social media.
for sure.
Yikes. But these kids have to live in that environment, and again, and like Amaya, who plays Katie, she's such a talented young lady. And super proud of her. We wrapped in, I think within like six weeks, she booked one of the leads in um Taylor Sheridan's new Yellowstone spinoff, The
Oh
Mad.
wow.
So I mean, she's just what reads on her face, when things start to go wrong. It just, it breaks it breaks your heart. But yeah, those kids also, like, one thing I'm grateful from SCAD, I got to like eavesdrop and overhear all their vernacular, about everything,
Yeah.
like Riz and no
Yeah.
cap and stuff like, so I'm like, okay, well, okay. I felt like I think like Cameron Crowe went back to high school. Like that's how he wrote the script for Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So
Yeah.
I'm the old guy trying to like scribble down all their colloquialisms. But,
1000%, man. Well, Jeff, man, I really do. I congratulate you guys, the whole, cast, crew, everybody for delivering this thing and making a heck of a fun ride that, like you mentioned at the top, the 90-minute mark, that still is, in my opinion, to the sweet, spot. If you can tell a story in 90 minutes and you get the audience in, deliver, and get them out, they feel like, it wasn't a without, to not bash, but like a Zack Snyder, 3 hour, I'm
oh,
gonna have to go to the bathroom and miss part of it type of a thing. Like this thing really does get your attention off the get-go, and you're trying to figure it out. You think you may have it figured out, and nope, things shift and you're like, well, damn, now I just got to sit back and see how it all unfolds. And it really is a fun ride. The Stranger in My Home is definitely one that you guys, if you're watching or listening, should check out. And yeah, man, hopefully we can get you back on if you delve into the horror thriller world again.
For sure. Well, thanks so much, Jimmy. I really appreciate it. I so appreciate the kind words about the movie. And we did just want to make it a fun ride. So to hear you say that you thought that just makes my day. And I would love to come back and talk to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Right on, buddy. Take
All right.
care.
Okay, have a good one. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Jeff. I will get this out